Chair right here?
She's in charge at home.
She is?
For sure. Here, I'm giving this to you.
Yep, you're it. Tag, you're it. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Delaney Hall. I'm a morning anchor at ABC 8 News here in Richmond. I am so honored to be with you guys in this room today and joined by these four wonderful experts. You each have a very different journey to success. And today we're going to hear about your journey, how you got there, what made you so successful, and what you think the next generation can do to propel themselves to success. So, is everyone ready? Cool. So first I just want to start out by hearing from each of you. Just introduce yourself and just a little bit of your background, whatever you're comfortable sharing. Go ahead, Lori.
I get to start because I'm holding the mic.
Yeah.
So hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out on this kind of Richmond January-ish day. I'm Lori Waran. I'm with Richmond Raceway, and I just started actually 6 months ago. So I don't know that I get to say that I'm successful yet because we've only had one race with me at the helm. But on April 2nd, we get to have another one, and I get to say that it's sort of a race that I fully got to be a part of with a wonderful team. But my pathway to this part was actually an interesting pathway. I've been in Richmond. I grew up in Richmond. I'm from Richmond in the Hanover area. I've been in media, actually. I started, ironically, at Auto Trader magazine. Right? Cue the drum. So I started at Auto Trader magazine, and then I moved to Style Weekly, where I was there for 15 years as the publisher. And for those of you who don't know what a publisher actually oversees the entire business. I did not write. Thankfully for you all, I didn't have to write any stories. I'm a terrible writer, but I did get to oversee the business, and then I moved to Virginia Business Magazine. So I was a media executive. That's a strange pathway, I know, but I landed at Richmond Raceway, and I'm very excited to be there. So that's a quick Cliff Notes version, and I'll tell you more as we go on.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. Did someone win the race?
Someone did.
Then it was successful.
They made it across the finish.
That's all that matters. Well, hi, I'm Janet Kelly. I'm currently Senior Advisor to the Governor for Children in the Office of Governor Youngkin. And I came to this role and through to success, which I'll use in quotes because, as we all know, it's an up and down journey through, not surprisingly, the political sphere. I started out running campaigns when I was in high school. Campaigns are like mini startups. They have unbelievably large budgets for the length of time that they last, and ended up winning the 2005 Attorney General's race. So I think I set the record for the youngest female to win a campaign in Virginia. I say that as a cautionary tale. It means I peaked early. And I am still learning. Served as Secretary of the Commonwealth in 2010 to 2014, and then went off to some consulting. So I've run 2 of my own consulting firms and also ran a nonprofit, which is also like a business. We just have a different IRS designation. And so we'll talk more later, but that's my path. And like I said, still learning and growing. And I have a notebook up here because I'm planning on learning from you all.
Can't hold too many things at once, but thank you. Hi, everybody. This is just a beautiful crowd. I'm super nervous. This is my first time, so show me grace. My name is Angela Roisten, and I work for this organization you might know of called Virginia Credit Union. I've been there since 2008. I have about 25 plus years experience in the financial industry. I lead a dynamic team of financial professionals, and I absolutely love it. I'm not from Virginia. I'm a military brat, so I've grown up everywhere that I lived. But I claim Hawaii because that's where I lived the longest, and that's where I met my husband of 25 years, which I still have a crush on him. But together, we have 2 beautiful daughters, 27 and 22, and we also are foster parents of 2 adult sons with special needs. So, oh, and I also have 2 fur babies, and I'm excited to hear about all these wonderful leaders, and I'm hoping that I can add a little value as well.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Till. I am the president of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and also the president of all of our markets in Virginia. We have 13 markets across Virginia with Lee Enterprises, Virginia. I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. I'm from Virginia, but lived in, crabber? Are you a crabber? Okay, can't crush the crabs, I'm just saying. But I moved to Richmond 2 years ago, started as the president 7 months ago. And I've seen a lot of change. I've been in the media business for 27 years. Actually, Lori and I used to work together with Landmark Communications, so we go way back. But I love what we do. And I grew up in the Hampton Roads area, and I just love Richmond. I didn't know how much I would love it, but my husband and I love it. We have 5 kids blended. 5. We're the Till bunch, I like to say. But no, I'm excited to be here and looking forward to learning from all of you, too.
Wonderful.
Down here.
Okay. So my first question is going to be, I guess your childhood, if you could say. Growing up, would you say you were a motivated person? I know I heard something about campaigns when in high school.
Go
ahead.
I'll
Yeah,
go with that.
whoever wants to answer.
Yes, I was very motivated. I grew up with a single mother, and so I was lucky enough to have a very strong mother who's my hero still today. A lot of strong females in my life. I have a really strong grandmother who's still alive, and my aunts, and yeah, so I was very motivated, and I had a great role model and other role models to learn from, and still do today, because I think it's important that we all have mentors and models that we can learn from and lean on when needed. So, yeah.
I think we're going to have a lot of mommy stories. Yeah, I was totally motivated growing up in some things. I had a great mom. My mom is that person that's like, oh, it's awesome. You're going to be great. So that was a little bit contagious. So I was always motivated. She put me in all these extracurricular activities, and she made it feel like it was such a fun thing. And I really value that because it helped me create long-lasting memories and basic fundamentals to actually kind of live in this society. Now, I wasn't motivated like getting up in the morning, but I mean, I had a strict dad. I mean, he was a colonel in the military, and I love him to death. I'm probably going to hear about this later. I love him to death, but he was strict. So I was very motivated, like, not to be on his bad side. So I'll go with that. Yeah.
Never gets you through, right?
Also, if you're a veteran family, Virginia is your home. Like, let's just settle that
In my home.
once and for all.
Right. That's
All right, I just had to slip that in there. So I grew up in rural North Carolina, and so for how many of you grew up in a rural environment, rural community? You know, it just instills you with so many wonderful values that you can also learn anywhere, but I always had someone watching me, which kind of kept me out of trouble. All the moms talked. I also have a very strong mom role model who worked 3 jobs to make sure that we had all that we needed and some of what we wanted. And very, 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 we were a family of strong female leads. Strong aunts, we call them aunts in North Carolina, not aunts. Strong grandmothers, all of the things. And I think, I'll tell you one story because I think that a short one. I remember I have 2, an older brother and a younger brother, and my grandfather was painting our house. He was on scaffolding, and I was about 8, really into gymnastics. And he's standing at the top, like 2nd floor of our house, and he's like, "Hey, Jan, get me some tea." And my brother's like, "I'll do it." I'm like, "Okay, go ahead. I'm not an idiot. Like, if you want to take him the tea, take him the tea." And he couldn't do it. And so I, with one arm, climbed that scaffolding and got my grandfather the tea. And so looking back, I was 7 years old. And I mean, from that point on, it was game off. I was just like, I know that I can do anything I really put my mind to because I have this really supportive community of people who are cheering me on. And I really felt that my whole life. So
That's the good stuff. I like that. My parents were both high school principals. Yeah, live in that for a little bit. So whether I wanted to be motivated or not, I was. My father, before he was a high school principal, was football. There's one of his students right there, actually, was a high school football coach. So I was ensured I was going to be motivated from them. So, but they were great. My mother was one of the first high school principals in Henrico County. So, yeah, I was highly motivated as a kid. I'll leave it there.
No, thank you for those stories. I want you to think about your first job. First job where you got a paycheck. When you got that first job, was the priority the paycheck? Was it the experience? Was it to get your foot in the door? Was it something else? What was the motivation behind getting that, I guess, first job related to your industry now? I could say that.
My first job was actually bagging groceries at U-Crops. And speaking of my parents were, motivating me to get a paycheck. So that was my motivation from them. My dad was of the mindset, you rub some dirt on it. You get out there, if you are, if your boyfriend breaks up with you, you rub some dirt on it. If you get a bad grade, you rub some dirt on it. If you actually fall down, you rub some dirt on it. So I just, it was during the summer that I had the job, and it was hot as heck, and so I wasn't going to complain about how the heat or anything. Bagging groceries, that's when you took the groceries out with U-Crops, right? So yeah, it was hot, and I was just not going to complain. You just rub some dirt on it. So that was, that was the discipline that I had, and I enjoyed it. It was good for me to have some dirt rubbed on it. So
that is such a great answer. I forgot the question, so you're gonna have to remind me.
Your first job was the priority, the paycheck or experience or what? Yeah.
At U-Crops, that's the most Richmond job you could possibly have as your first. So my first job was waiting tables. Like, how many people waited tables for their very first job? It's a good first job in a lot of ways. It's a terrible job in a lot of ways. But my parents did not pay for a lot of wants. You caught me earlier. I said she paid for everything we need and some of what we wanted. A lot of what we wanted was not covered by my parents. They said, if you want the nice pair of tennis shoes, it's on you. So I started working when I was 14. Really started working before that, but got my first paycheck at 14. I do the same with my own kids. I have my 10-year-old daughter here. This is Tobin. I like to say my kids are my best work. I also have a 12-year-old and a 19-year-old who's a freshman at JMU. I missed that in my bio, but she's here. And we do the same, don't I? She should answer this question because she does lemonade stands. They do chores to earn money. They do, she wants a $60 pair of new Converse. And I'm like, it's on you, babe. And she's 10. She's not even 10. She's 9. So I love the notion of that first job teaching you those lessons. So.
Well, like Lori, my first job was bagging groceries, but it was in the commissary. So if you're not in the military, commissary is like a grocery store. And I totally did it for money. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I wanted that money, especially when I was going to college, because, I wanted to let my parents know that I could help them with something, whether it was like books or, or food. I wanted to show that I can help them. But as I got into my career, I obviously looked for opportunities that have internal growth, right? That, had a great salary, because I was a new mom during that time. And so that was a priority for me to make sure that I, build a foundation where my family can be together. But yeah, I learned a lot about bagging. People not tipping, people tipping. It's hard work, but when you want money and you need money at a young age because you like nice shoes, you will put in the work. And so I have great parents that taught me a lot of work ethic, and I actually kind of loved every job that I worked at. But, I mean, I could do without the bagging part, but it was a great start for me.
I did not like every job I've done. Oh, I can say that. But there's a theme here, because my first job was at Farm Fresh. Grocery store, yeah. And I did it for the money, gas money. We grew up with nothing, and I had to work for that. And as I grew as a person, especially in college, I started to do things where I could learn, or I could learn from whoever I was working with. So I did a lot of, back then, when we would do internships, you didn't get paid, and you had to pay for the class. I think that's still happening. We need to change that. And that was always to learn, and to grow and to get that next opportunity. And then, literally, I could give you 5 examples of where I took a lesser paying job for the experience, but it always worked out. I always ended up making more, or it took me down a path to a better opportunity. So I would say early on, it was for the money. Later on, it was for the experience and what I could learn from. Yeah.
Very nice.
Hand that to me, huh? Okay. All right.
Have any of you ever been told you're inferior at work or can't perform as well because you are a woman? If so, how did you handle that?
Ew, touchy. Okay, well, I've never been told that outright, but there has been some indirect situations where it felt that way. But you know what? The best recipe for motivating me is to tell me I'm incapable of doing something. So I just kind of use that as an opportunity to prove you wrong. So.
Oh, this is one of my favorite stories from my girls. I was 23 and working on a campaign, and I had worked on enough of them that I knew better when I heard this. But I was working on a Senate race. There was a congressional race. The congressional race needed a fundraiser, and I was on the political side. And it is generally true that girls fundraise and boys do politics. That was generally true, at least back then. And I was the only girl field staffer, the whole bit. And so he comes, kind of comes in my office and says, hey, we really need a fundraiser for this congressional race. And I was like, well, I don't enjoy fundraising. I don't really find it to be challenging to me. I really enjoy the political side. I really want to do the I love it, all that. And he goes, well, let me just tell you how this works. Boys do politics and girls do fundraising. I said, okay. I'm going to do politics. And I did. And I just ignored him, and he saw me every day. And, I actually ended up working for me later. So.
Wow. I'm sure, there's been a million times. I can't recall specifics and anecdotal, but the short answer is yes. But I don't believe it's been gender specific, which I think is probably where the question is sort of leading. I think it's been sort of across the board. But you know, you just answer that, in my opinion, with your actions, right? You just show up and do it, and then you prove it, and that's it. So I wish that there was something anecdotal I can share, because that was a really good story. But you just show up by your actions and prove it.
That was a mic drop answer, I think. That was a good one.
Yeah, I don't think I can top your answer, but I agree with Lori. I mean, it happened a lot with female managers, coworkers, and male. But you just learn from that and you move on, and with action. And I've had many of them work for me later too. And I just, it happened more when I was in my 20s than it really does now. In the beginning of my career, it happened a lot. Not so much now. Not so much now.
Have you ever seen a coworker or colleague get publicly ridiculed while on the job? If so, how did that impact the workplace culture, and did it impact you in any way?
I'll start with that one. When I worked at the Virginian Pilot in the 1990s, late 1990s, it was a good old boys club. No offense to the men in the room, but it was. Media was a lot of, most salespeople were men. Women were the secretaries or the assistants. It's weird now. It's flipped. Now the majority of salespeople in media, or at least in my industry, are female. We're trying to get more men. But they would throw footballs on the floor, and there was one guy that was just an ugly person, and he used to yell at everyone and berate them, and just nasty. I like to call them energy vampires. He was an energy vampire. He would suck the life out of the room. But I was a new employee, and I saw this happening, and I remember thinking, one, I don't want that to happen to me, but two, I know what I'm not going to do when I get in a position where I'm managing people. And later, years later, this individual ended up working for me, and I liberated him quickly, because I believe in you need to hire nice people who work hard, and I don't care how successful that person might be, and I've always, every position I've ever had, and still today, if they're an ugly person that is not going to help your culture, you need, and I like to call that cancer, I cut the cancer out. So I did liberate him, because it was liberating for me at the time to terminate, but at the same time I think it was liberating for him, because he ended up going and doing other things and was very happy. So a lot of times they're just not in the right role, and that was the case with this individual. But yeah, he was just, and for whatever reason, he was there for like 10 years, and that behavior was allowed, and I'm not really sure why, but not after he started reporting to me. Yeah. He was liberated. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that does happen a lot in the workplace, and more than you'd like to, but, I learned this thing a long time ago. I don't remember where I learned it from, but it's called the 3 PLEs. Do y'all know what PLE stands for? Perfectly logical explanation. I'm going to need some crowd participation, because I'm going to give you a story. Okay, so, I never really try to understand why people are pulling the cancer and the air out of you. I never really understand how they do that, but I always try to give people 3 PLEs before I address it, right? So, that person might be going through something personal in their life, right? And unfortunately, they brought it to work. That could be the first PLE. But if it happens again, I'm like, I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation as to why we're here, right? And so now I'm thinking, maybe I need to pay attention, because maybe it's me. What am I doing to encourage this unwelcome behavior? So that's the second PLE. But if we get to the third PLE, I give myself permission to address it respectfully, address it, right? I'll give you an example. I had this executive a long time ago. I'm not going to name the company. And a wonderful person, and everywhere we went, she would introduce me. She'd say, hey, this is Angela, and she does those little events. Ooh, PLE. So we would go to these various events, and that's how she introduced me. Oh yeah, this is Angela Roisten, and she does those little events. So I got to the third PLE and I said, hey, how can I convince you that that little event is not so little to me at all? And you know what? She didn't even realize that her words came across as condescending, and she totally apologized. I say all that to say is, like, as leaders, we really need to be mindful of our delivery, because what may be important to them, it may not be important to us, but it may be extremely important to them. And as leaders, it's our job to kind of listen and hear what they have to say, even when the value doesn't make sense to you at first. So that's kind of my spin on it. Oh, steal it. I'm going to steal the liberated.
That's really good. I'm glad I brought my notebook. You know, I mean, when you're in politics, you see a lot of that kind of behavior, and I would love to say that I handled it the right way every single time and did the, you know, made the person feel better and stuck up for them. I didn't. I didn't. And so there's, you know, there's looking at what you can control now. And just recently we were doing an event at work, and it was a very short term. Like, we pulled off a 200-person event in 3 days, and all hands were on deck, so I was helping with it. And afterwards we went out for drinks to kind of debrief. And I just said, hey guys, I've realized something about myself. I can either be kind, I can be excellent, or I can be fast. Pick two. That's it. You get to pick two. And then, you know, they laughed, and it is funny, you know, but it's still not okay, you know. And I wasn't, you know, especially for how I was in my 20s, and Kristen's worked with me in my 20s, so she knows how much I've grown since then. But that's all I can control now. And, you know, just finding there's never an excuse not to be kind, if I'm honest. And so, yeah, I'm still learning and growing in that. I don't think I berate people, but yeah, you've worked with me. I don't berate people, but still learning and growing in that, and figuring out better ways to handle it when it happens in the moment.
I like what you said, because we're still learning and growing. And one of the things that Barry asked us to do is to try to share little nuggets with you guys throughout this conversation. And I'm hopeful that I can share little nuggets, but I think what's maybe even more important is that we share truth with you. And as leaders, you know, we fail a lot, probably more often than we do well. And early on in my career, one of the things that I didn't share was, as publisher, I took over as publisher at Style Weekly when I was 31 years old, and at that time it was the youngest publisher in the United States of an alternative weekly. When you're young, you make a lot of mistakes, right? A lot. And as such, I failed tons. And I know I failed, especially in this job, in this department. I let a number of really unfortunate events happen over and over again, and one of those was in this area, letting toxic employees sort of be a cancer, and continue on. And I did name the company. So, but it was my fault. Yeah, it was my fault. And I could have done better in this department, and I've definitely learned from it. And so that's one of the areas that I know I can improve upon, and I've definitely fixed and corrected that. And I know that it certainly helps. You know, culture is the only thing you have really to make progress. And if you don't fix culture right away, it can eat away at a company. And I know that right now I feel like we got a great culture. Do we have a great culture? Okay. I feel like we do great at Richmond Raceway, but you know, it's something that I didn't do well early on, and so you know, it's a little nugget right now, I guess, is that I failed pretty badly early on, and so that's the truth serum and the nugget that I'm sharing right now.
Thank you for that truth. I know that's not easy. Can you recall a time when you felt defeated at work? How did you overcome that?
Yesterday, the day before that. You know, I mean, more truth serum. I'm like the negative Nancy right now. I'm not trying to be, but I mean, it's like every moment, you know, but you pick yourself up, you rub some dirt on it, you know, you get back up. I mean, that's the great stuff. That's the good stuff, is that how you overcome, you know, those moments, right? So that's it.
Yes, ditto. I felt defeated today. I felt defeated yesterday, the day before. Right now, I'm working on a project related to behavioral health, mental health, substance use disorder. It's really heavy stuff. I'm not built for it. I'm not really professionally equipped to do the work at all. It's super intimidating, and I'm not easily intimidated, but it is. And so I've come to two truth serums, if you will. One is I'm 46. So at this point in my life, if I'm not doing things that scare the boots off me, what is the point, right? Like, I clearly have a set of gifts. All of these women do. We all have a superpower. Each of you does as well. And you have it for a reason. And so use it. And who cares if you're defeated? That's not an excuse not to keep going. I think the second truth nugget, at least for me, is my faith is something that I absolutely could not live without. There is zero chance that I could see the trauma I see the systemic brokenness that I see on a daily basis, and get up and not feel defeated if I didn't have my faith. So that is where I draw my hope from, with a capital H. And if I didn't have that, there's no way. I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. So
Don't start doing church, because let me tell you, I'm telling you, faith is the core of what drives me, and I can't help but to think that the values that I have, is from God. And so, hey, I get the most clarity when I go to God in prayer, but I'm not going to have church. But yes, like these women, I'm defeated all the time. But, one of the things that's extremely defeating for me is, like, letting people go. Like, you never want to, like, let people go. That just...
But now you're liberating them.
But now I'm going to change it to liberating. You never want to, like, let people go. And I always feel defeated about that, even though if I devote, like, many resources and hours just to try to turn, that employee around, it happens sometimes, and it doesn't feel good. But I have to tell myself, Jesus can leave the 99 sheep to chase the one. But as leaders, we can't always do that, And as much as we want to chase that quiet quitter, we got to realize that we have that friendly fire employee. That's that employee that's disengaged, bringing down morale, never wants to be here, and everyone's like, it's time for you to go. Like, you're taking the air out of me. And so at that point, and those were two different people, two different types of employees. But at that point, I no longer carry that defeat, because that person didn't want to be here anyways. But that's always been something that I feel defeated on. But
I mean, every day, this morning. We went from 3 pages of funnies to 1. And you want to talk about, like, upset subscribers, right? And newspapers is only one part of what we do. I mean, 54% of our revenue now comes from digital. A lot of people don't know that. Also, our structure is, as Lori mentioned, as publisher, that role as president and publisher continues to evolve. So my job as president is I run the company, the brand, the profit, but I'm not responsible for content. That flows up through a corporate content group at Lee Enterprises that figures out what the strategy is for content across all 77 markets. So imagine getting 1,000 calls from people who are upset. I got one this morning, and I want to help because I'm a fixer. But there's only so much I can do because it's a corporate decision. So, and we have made some adjustments to that, but that can be defeating because you feel like, you really want to help, but you can't in all cases. So what I do is I just put my head down. I explain, I try to help, I get their information to the right people, and then I put my head down, do the work, stay positive, and good things come from that. But it can be exhausting. So I know you've seen them next door, all your neighbors are complaining. Tell them they can call me. We probably won't go back to 3 pages of funnies, but yeah, no, it's every day.
That was a good story. During a job interview, what skills do you find are mandatory?
I guess I will go since I am holding the mic. I mean, in my line of work, we're in sales, so I obviously look for people that have good relationship building skills, interpersonal skills, individuals that can step outside the box, and people that can really learn how to prioritize. So those are, there's so many more, but like those are my top, what did I say, top 4 or 5.
Do you want to go next?
This will be short for me. I have hired hundreds of people in my life. I ran the governor's transition in 2009. I ran an AG's transition, so at a very young age, had to learn very early on. And I probably have a framework for this somewhere, but the general gist of it is that soft skills right now are worth 1,000,000 times more to me than hard skills. And it's not that one is more important than the other. You need both, but I find that it is easier to teach those hard skills than the soft skills. So if you walk in with soft skills, if you have high emotional intelligence, if you have high empathy, if you're a collaborator, if you already are a natural coordinator, you're hired. I can teach you to do anything. By the way, I don't have any jobs right now. I wish I did. But those, and I would love to know who disagrees with me up there, because I bet all of us are kind of in that same boat of like hard skills. I can teach you math, I can teach you Excel, I can teach you anything you need to know, or someone can. I'm not going to teach you math. But those soft skills are so key.
Two things: are you coachable, and do I think you want to learn? It's really easy. Can I tell if you're coachable? Because coachable is everything. And do you seem like you want to learn even if you are 89 years old? Because there's not a day that goes by that I don't know that I want to learn something. If you think you don't have nothing left to learn, then kind of game over.
Ditto. That's okay. We can keep it rolling. How do you evaluate team members and hold them accountable?
Hold them accountable? A big thing is if they will hold themselves accountable. I think that's it. I know I hold myself accountable, but evaluate team members. It's kind of ongoing every day. We do a review process at the end of the year, but ongoing feedback every day. I think that's pretty much it. That if they are, in my opinion, I haven't shared this with our team, but the theme this year is going to be hungry and humble. You got to stay hungry, but you got to be humble. That's it, hungry and humble, hungry and humble. If we're going to say that over and over again, we're going to stay on track, I think. So if they can hold themselves accountable, and if they're all hungry and humble the whole time, I think we're going to be good. That's it.
And I'm going to say ditto to that. Well said. I have nothing to add.
I guess when you hold people accountable, they have to see and believe that you can hold yourself accountable, right? So I got to set the expectation. And then I think it's important to sort of put in responsibility and ownership in my team's DNA to drive successful outcomes. Because if you don't give them a sense of responsibility and ownership, they're not gonna own it, right? But I also need to be clear on expectations when it comes to accountability, right? Because it's not fair to hold somebody accountable. They don't even know what's being asked of them, right? So I think if we have clear expectations, it's so much easier to evaluate employees' performances, whether good or bad. That makes any sense?
What I was going to say.
Yeah. Ditto.
I like that. Ditto.
So good.
Have any of you all had mentors over the years? And how important were they to your journey? I see a lot of hands, so go ahead.
I know, I'm glad I have the mic on this, because I'm going to go first. I had the best, second dibs, I had the best mentors on the planet, and I got to work for 3 men. They happened to be men. I didn't have a whole lot of female role models coming up through my 20s, but I had 3 men who I was treated simultaneously like their daughters or sisters, and never for 1 second believed or perceived in any way, shape, or form that I was different than or less than or whatever than any other member of my team that was not a female. So I had so lucky, and I would, if you don't have a mentor, I would highly encourage you to get one. We have a legend in the Richmond business community here, Debbie Johnson. We have another legend in the Richmond business community. We have a lot of legends. I'm just sure I don't know all of you, but the 2 that I know, Dave Barrett and Debbie, that are in the room are just phenomenal. I know they mentor people as well. And I still have coffee with mine every day. So Governor McDonnell was one. I'm going to name them because I'm going to tell them to watch. Governor McDonnell, Justice Bill Mims, who just retired off the Supreme Court, and then Phil Cox, who lives in Northern Virginia. None of you know, but I'm so lucky.
I didn't know Debbie was here. I just realized, I just saw. She was one of our executive women in business for Style Weekly a long time ago. I remember that. So, hi. Thank you. So the reason I wanted to grab the mic so hard really quickly is because Kelly was one of mine. So, yeah. I know, hard. Right. So it's kind of cool to be on a panel with her now. I'm kind of fangirling. No, but Kelly has mentored people for such a long time. She was an official mentor of mine, but then also I think she's been like unofficially so many people's. Is that a correct grammar? I don't know. This is why I was never an editor. I was only a publisher and didn't write. But Kelly's been a great mentor to people down in Hampton Roads community. And so she's not going to tell you this. That's why I needed to grab the mic immediately and brag on her. But so Kelly has been one, but I've had a lot of male mentors as well. And so I didn't want this to be like because it's a women's panel, like, come up and say it's all about women and female empowerment, and I want to make sure that we shout out to the important and impactful men in our lives as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Look at that. Will you be my mentor? The question was, have you had a mentor and did they know?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So, yeah, I always have a mentor. I've had mentors over the years, and they always knew that they were my mentor because I created these mentor agreements. I have a story behind this. Don't think I'm extra. Because I got a real failure story that I got to share. But, a part of that mentor agreement is, how often can they meet with me? Letting them know some of the areas of development that I need to work on, and being able to kind of follow up with them in terms of my progress. So I take that real seriously, and I'll tell you why. When I was a young leader in the organization growing, I was like, I'm going to get me a coach because I want to move up fast in the organization. So I got me a coach, had saved my money, got the coach on the side, and I was meeting with this coach, and there were times where work got in the way, and I had to cancel some of those coaching sessions. And I think that coach, I was at her third PLE because this is what she said to me. Don't miss this. She said, okay, I just now know that I know where I stand and I know where your development stands on your priority list. Oh, I still get this gut, guilt, lack of self-awareness feeling just talking about that. And so from that day forward, I make it a point to, when I ask somebody to be my mentor, I take that seriously, and I need them to know that I'm going to take it seriously, and that's why I do that mentor agreement, because these people are taking time out of their day to talk to you, and shame on me for not showing up. So I'll never do that again. And if someone asks me to be their mentor, I also take that seriously because I want to know how serious you are. So I'm going to send you these questionnaires. How often do you want to meet? What do you want to focus on? Are you good with tough love? Because Angela's going to give you tough love, right? I feel they're asking me to be responsible for their developmental growth, and I need to be 100% invested in that. And if I can go back the hands of time, I wouldn't have skipped a single meeting because I'm just not on your priority list, and neither is your development. Ouch. So show up. Show up.
I'm a huge, as Lori said, and thank you, Lori, I'm a huge believer in mentoring and being mentored. And if your mentor doesn't know they're your mentor, then that's not a mentorship. That's more of someone you admire or look up to or what have you. Because it needs to be, as Angela said, a two-way street. And I have been fortunate, as many of us have mentioned, to have some incredible male mentors, especially when I was in my 20s and 30s, and still do today, and also females, because I think it's good also with your mentors. I have some professional mentors because you have professional growth as a human, as a person, and then as a mother, and then I also have so personal mentors and then professional mentors. And because I had such good mentors along the way, I tried to give back. And so I still mentor today. But I am choosy because we only have so much time, and so it's really important that you pick people that you connect with and that you feel like you can help. And if I've even had some people where I ended up referring them to another person who I thought would be a better mentor for them based on what they were trying to get out of the mentorship. So no, I'm a huge believer in mentoring, and so if some of you don't have mentors, please get some, and if you have been mentored, give back and find some younger professionals or just younger humans that you can help along their journey.
May I add something?
Sure.
You mentioned the difference between personal and professional mentors, and I really like that. And in campaigns, and Barry will know this. Thank you, Barry, by the way, for inviting us here today. This has been such great content. Yes. In politics, when you're running for office, you create something called a kitchen cabinet. Is anybody familiar with a kitchen cabinet? And it's really like your own personal board of directors that will pour into you, you can bounce ideas off of. It's ideal if you meet together, but my kitchen cabinet is all working moms who don't have, and we're lucky if we get to see each other once a month, much less all together for me once a month. Like, that's not realistic in this phase of life. But I love the idea of a kitchen cabinet, and it's a little bit, takes the pressure off of when you say mentor. Some people are like, ooh, that's a lot of time commitment. But if you're like, would you join my kitchen cabinet? It sounds like, or will you join my, it's like, oh, that sounds fancy. So for what that's worth.
I like that a lot. Where have you gotten the best training to help develop your skills, and why does it stand out among the rest? You need to think about it.
I know.
It's okay. Someone else can take the mic for a second. Yeah. Let me think about that. Yeah.
I have been so blessed to have so many influencers that have crossed my path that have helped me with my skills. A lot of you are in the room, so thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But I mean, I can go a long list of things, anywhere from Leadership Metro Richmond to Executive Women International. Love Executive Women International. They're all about careers, connections, and community. Check them out. They're amazing. But also my children. Right? But I think alone the best skill that I learned, and Lori mentioned this a lot of times, is failing. I wrote the book on failures, burnt it and buried it under my success, but I'm completely open to a new book of failures because I think from a failure standpoint, you never want to get back in that space, so that stands out to me because you want to make sure to avoid those things and grow from it. So that's my, thank you. Anybody else?
I will say the best way that I personally have learned is just from doing. I mean, I don't know how, politics is so proud of campaigns, or that's how I was formed. That's my professional formation in my 20s. I haven't run a campaign in 15 years. I'm not partisan, so if you're like, I'm not going to listen to anything she says because she's all political, I'm not partisan anymore. I work on children's mental health, and I think everyone agrees that that's important. So, I will say doing the work is important, and I think for professional growth, there are so many tools that you all have probably taken, Myers-Briggs and DISC and all of those things. Like, we kind of roll our eyes at them because normally you're forced to do them at a staff retreat and open up to your colleagues about things that you really don't want to talk about with them, and it may not be the best experience for you. However, I will say there is a tool that has been, and I can't leave today without mentioning it, that has been so helpful to me. And it's a weird name. It's called the Enneagram, E-N-N-E-A-G-R-A-M. I love it. I'm not going to tell you what my number is, although you could probably guess. But it is, it's different in that it's different from what I think all the other tools are because it gives you a path to growth, whereas the other tools are more observational and reflective. This is like, here's how you know when you're growing as your number. It all ties to core childhood wound, which we all have, whether we want to admit it or not. And so how many people are familiar, I'll just real quick, familiar with Enneagram, love it? Okay, so it's not, I love it, please do it.
No, I would echo just getting out there and doing it, and then also listening, doing, making a decision. I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in listening, trying, but then not making a decision. Once I make a decision, I kind of learn from it. So I think that's where I've learned, because I either learned I've done something wrong or I've learned I've done something right. So I think just getting out there and doing it, that's probably the best place.
I would just echo everything, what everyone said. to listen, to do, try, fail forward. Be quick to pivot when it's not working. I've done this myself. I try not to now, but I see it often where you've got your plan, you're sticking to your plan, and even though the plan's not working, you're just going to continue to do it. And so, being nimble to try different things. And I really also try to get all of the people that work with me to have A/B testing. So constantly look at ways to try different things at multiple times, because it doesn't matter what you put on paper, it's probably not going to be 100%, right? And then when you learn what's working, then do more of that and do less of what's not working. And don't beat yourself up, especially women. Women tend to beat themselves up, and we shouldn't do that. You know, you need to have self-talk. So that's another thing. Mentors, great. People that you work, you know, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, but you also have to be good to yourself. And so I am constantly self-talking to myself, and I do that to my kids too. And it's amazing, and it does work. And then having people that work around you that will tell you when you screw up, because none of us are like the woman that you said did 3 PLEs, and then you're like, that really offended me, and then she didn't even realize, because a lot of times the difference, we're all different, and so making sure that we're communicating, and when something does offend you, that you have the courage to have that conversation, because you learn through that, and the person typically, it's intent versus impact. Normally the intention is not coming from a bad place, but it's the impact was bad. That's how I've developed and learned over the years, and continue to this day.
That's some great advice there. We have time for probably one more question. So, have you ever felt like you had to work harder for the same goal compared to your male coworkers?
Not now. Not now. Not now. But yes, in the beginning. Yes, and it was frustrating. But I will say, not now with the company that I'm with. But even in this role, and I'm not going to name names, or, you know, I'm the first female president in 172 years. Girl power, yay. Yes. But I don't want you to say yay yet, because I've only been in the role 7 months. I want, you know, we broke the ceiling. It took too damn long, excuse my French. But I want my legacy to be the good action that comes from me being the leader of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and the Daily Progress and all of our streaming video groups and our digital division, etc. Not because I'm a female, because I earned this role because of what I've done over the last 27 years, not because I'm a female. So that's the first thing. Sorry to get on my soapbox, but I think so many of us say, well, first female, and that's great, but it's more than that. It's the positive impact that we make in the role that we're in, whatever that is, because there's leadership at every level. And I love having a young one here today, our next generation, because you don't have to be the leader of 1,000 people to make a positive difference. You can make a positive difference everyone can make a positive difference. So I don't even remember what the question was.
You answered it perfectly.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go.
No one's going next.
That was it.
Drop the mic.
Drop the mic. No.
That was good.
No.
Like, seriously, ditto. I have nothing to add to that. I agree.
Same.
That's okay.
Well
We
said.
can wrap it up with, I guess, what piece of advice would you give to the next generation, to the little ones in the room? That was a loaded question, I know.
I know I have 2 boys. I have a 16-year-old son, and I have a 22-year-old son who's a senior at Virginia Tech. And have a lot. Yeah, you're hokey? Okay. And my only advice to them is to slow the heck down. And that's coming from the president of a racetrack, right? But to the other generation, to the rest of the generation that's coming up, you know, I did have some yeah, I do get some pushback from being in my role from the other gender, even now. But it's understandable because I'm in a male-dominated world, and I didn't come from a background in sports. But you know, my response is I don't have a background in sports, but I have a background in success. And so just keep having a background in success, right? And that could be your response. Just keep pushing, right? And you are being successful, I already heard, so. Very successful. She's a little dynamo, so.
Thank you. Well, my daughter's here, so I will tell you what I tell her, and that is something along the lines, and it has a different iteration, but love God, love yourself, love others. And, whether you believe in a higher power or not, pick one. I'll circle back to something that Angela said at the very beginning, which was that I don't know how many people caught that she said she was a foster parent. Like that, I'm a foster to adopt mom. And, we can sit up here all day and talk about best practices and strategies for success. And I mean, listen, all four of us are from male-dominated professions. All four of us have, but at the end of the day, I mean, it really is kind of true what they say, that on your deathbed, you don't wish you had spent more time at the office. What matters is those relationships that you build, the impact that you've had to those kids, Angela, is priceless. So thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours. I mean, I'm learning from them. Trust me, I've learned so much from them, and I love them dearly. So it's just a huge value in my life. Don't get me emotional. I'll get that choky thing in my throat. But I'm trying to think of this quote. Like this leader said, leadership is the art of building a platform for people to share ideas that work. So my message to you is share them. Don't be in a position where you have to wonder whether your ideas could have gone somewhere. Don't be that quiet employee. Like, share them. And even if you get the let down at first, circle back. You never know. It could be timing, but share them.
I would say lean in, give back, have a voice. If you see something that you don't agree with, say it, say something. Or if you see something that you do agree with, emulate it and, evangelize it. And then also just try to make a positive impact, because when you do that and you think about others and making a positive impact every day, and it could just be, I always like to say, incremental improvement. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. But if we can every day see incremental improvement, that's a good day. And if we all did that, it'd be a much better world that we live in. And that sounds so hokey, but it's true. It's really true. It's really true.
I think that's a great way to end this. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I mean, that was wonderful. Thank you. Barry, if you want to come on, give some announcements.
I would love to thank you, ladies, all five of you. I was hoping for genuineness. I think we got it. I think God is so great. He's given us each a heart and a brain. It came across right here. And thank you so much. And I think we all learned a lot sitting here. This came together, so you know, I had a visit. I'm new in this position. I've been here 1 year, actually, and Lori was brand new at her job, and getting an appointment with her was about 3 to 4 months. And so I got an appointment, and I said, yes, I'm showing up. And right then, my boss, Dave Barrett, calls me. My board of directors calls me on the phone. Well, boss, I'm working right now. What are you doing? But I talked to Lori, and at the way out, I said, I want to do a conference like this to build a community and our brand, and I'll tell you why in a second. And Lori, at the way out, she said, I'm in, but you got to get Kelly, who I had yet to be, and was on her radar, and about 5 months to get to. No, I'm only kidding. But I made the appointments at the same time, because I think they started at the same time. Janet Kelly I've known of, never had a chance to meet her, and I was fortunate enough to get connected. And Angela is a rock star. Everybody knows Angela, and she's incredible. Virginia credit you is lucky to have her. And then I will tell you, Delaney at Channel 8, I was a celebrity. A lot of you don't know that, but I was on Channel 8. Where's Larry? Is he still here? Larry never filled out my contract yet, Larry. Larry's a new general manager president, but I worked before Delaney at Channel 8. You don't know this because you're too young. But I had nice shoes, and you got to check out her shoes. That's what we do on the news. I bought a segment. They didn't pay me. I had to pay for 4 minutes on Channel 8 for 12 years, and it was great every Sunday morning to talk to the community. But, and Angela mentioned Executive Women's International. So I've got so many bosses. You would not want to be me. I'm just telling you that. Bobby is, so, Sandy, raise your hand. She's like, I'm his boss. She's the recruiting champion for EWI.
Great organization.
And what is the name?
Executive Women International.
And everybody out there should be saying, what is Barry in that, right? Because you don't see me sitting up here.
Well, you're Mr.
So I am Mr. EWI for the temporary time until I hire someone. But I work with Sandy trying to recruit. It's one of the greatest organizations ever that I've ever been part of. When I left Richmond in 18, it broke me up that I had to leave that. And again, I didn't go to every meeting. I had a lady that
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you had some lovely appetizers, hors d'oeuvres. So this part of the evening, we're going to open it up to you all. If you have any specific questions for any of these wonderful ladies up here, we'll open it up to you if you have something for specifically or just want to open it up. Yeah, so the floor is yours. We already have our first question. Ooh. I know. You good?
What I wanted to ask was, I mean, you definitely don't need to give me the microphone, okay? But
You have a great voice.
I know, right? No, I mean, I know I'm loud, okay? I don't know. So what I was going to say is, I know that statistically they have discovered that, and this is really shocking, that men will apply for a job when they're about 50% qualified to take the job, and they figure they'll learn the rest of it on the job, whereas we as women do not apply for or try out for anything until we're really confident that we've got all the skills necessary. And what I wanted to ask you guys was, and I feel like that's because we don't want to be seen as posers, you know? My question is, did y'all have that experience? Because I feel like you guys got it, and it's awesome, and like, did you experience a little bit of like, God, do I have enough to get there?
You probably have an answer. I need to process, but that is such a great question.
I'd say yes, yes, and yes. I mean, of course, there's doubts. And I think if you don't have doubts, a little bit of doubt in the position, then maybe that's not the right position for you, because you should stretch yourself. But I do find that it's just, even in my profession, men seem to just go for it. Right. And women are more tentative. And that's when you have to lean in, right? So I'll give you a quick example that happened to me. I'm pretty confident, you know, because I was raised by a single mother. I'm an alpha, you know, all those things you could say. But I still have self-doubt. And in 2005, I was at the Virginian Pilot. I'd started in 1996 and worked my way up. And I was the retail ad manager at the time. And so I had all of the retail teams reporting to me. And the next step would have been advertising director, which oversaw all the employees in advertising. And there were 240 employees. The budget was like 136 million or whatever. It was something like that, right? It was a lot. But prior to me, I ended up getting the role, but at the time, the Pilot was the flagship for the company. And so if you wanted to become an ad director, you'd have to go to a smaller property and prove yourself. Then you could come back and have the opportunity to be the ad director at the flagship. Following me? So I was a mother of 2 small children. You know, I had done all the things, so the next position was the ad director. But I did not want to, nor could I, at the time, move. Well, I could have, but I didn't want to uproot my family and move to Annapolis or Roanoke or Greensboro to prove myself, to then come back later and run the ad department at the Virginian Pilot. So this is the self-talk. So and I'd only been in my position as the retail ad manager for 8 months. So the ad director left or resigned, and I was self-talking, and I was talking myself out of it, which women do often. My mentor, one of my mentors, so this is why it's so important to have a mentor. One of my mentors called me. I picked up the phone, and she said, "Are you going to apply for the job?" And I said, "I don't know. I've got, I've only been in the job for 8 months. They're not going to even think about me in this position because I haven't gone and proven myself." And she's like, "No, you need to apply for the job. You have nothing to lose. You could be the first. You're ready. Apply for the job." So I hung up the phone, and literally 5 minutes later, the president at the time walked into my office and said, "Are you applying?" And because I had had that conversation, I was confident. And I said, "Yes, I am, and you'll have my resume by the end of the day." But if that if I had not had that conversation, even though I knew I could do it, but I was having all this self-doubt, I probably would have been like, not as. So sure enough, I apply. I'm applying against all these. It was applying against other men that had proven themselves, gone to smaller properties, and were trying to get back to the flagship. And I got the job. Because the male president, because, I also am not a believer in male bashing, because I have a lot of great male mentors, male leaders, and I've had some females in my life that were not very nice, right? So I think it's more about the person a lot of times, but anyhow, the president took a chance on me. I was 32 years old, kind of like Lori's story, 32 years old, and given this opportunity to run the flagship. And it's worked out for me. But again, that kind of weaves in a lot of get a mentor, try not to have so much self-doubt. But that's a great question, because we do. We do that. Women do that way more. So you need to have people around you to help you not do that.
That was so good, and I have a story that's almost identical about someone in my office that forewent the a cabinet role because she said, I have young kids, I can't do it, I'll just stay in the deputy role, it's fine, not a big deal. And it wasn't necessarily self-doubt for her abilities. She knew she could do it, but she had small kids and didn't want the work-life balance just wasn't working out, and I'm sure we're going to get that question. If we don't, I'll be shocked. And I was Secretary of the Commonwealth at the time, and so I was responsible for putting all those people in the positions. And I basically said to her, do you not understand that you're going to have more freedom when you're the boss than if you're the deputy? And that, a light bulb went off, and she was like, oh, I never thought of that. I'm like, okay, well, it's true. And well, and she did. That is true. And she did. We hired actually a perfect deputy for her. Actually, the two of the women cabinet secretaries in the McDonnell administration, same conversation, same dynamic. Both of them are kicking butt and taking names right now. And if I named the companies, you would be like, oh. But they never would have gotten there if they hadn't just jumped. And I have children, one's here. I'm not saying like forsake your family and all that, but sometimes taking that bold option actually gives you more freedom to do what you need to do and what you want to do.
I mean, I can't add to that, but the moral of the story is mentors, right? They're so important, having those hype people when you're feeling self-doubt to lift you up. And I have so many people that lift me up, and you guys have demonstrated that in the story that you told. So that was a great question.
Anyone else?
I've only applied actually for my first job. The rest, I was recruited from those jobs. But this past job, it was actually this time last year that I got a call from the chief digital officer at NASCAR, and who happened to be my childhood friend. This is kind of a cool story because he's from this area. So it really kind of speaks to, relationships and who you know. We've known each other since first grade. And his last name was Clark, or is Clark. My maiden name was Collier. So we grew up together sitting, you're always seated alphabetically, right? So all the way through elementary, middle, and high school, we were always seated beside each other. He's the chief digital officer chief digital officer at NASCAR now. He called me because I am obnoxious on LinkedIn, and I'm sick of myself on LinkedIn. I am. And he had been seeing a lot of things that I've been doing on LinkedIn and how I'd been obnoxiously self-promoting myself, and also the ways in which I'd been promoting other businesses and the business that I was doing. And he said, hey, we've got this opportunity in NASCAR, and we think you might be good at what we're looking for. Are you interested in talking? And I nearly fell out of my seat. And I was like, there is just no way I could do this. And I thought maybe he was talking about some other role at Richmond Raceway. And he said, no, it's actually the president and running the Raceway. And he said, let me connect some dots for you. You have taken other legacy organizations in the Richmond area and rebranded and refreshed those organizations and sort of brought them back to life. And we need someone doing that for Richmond Raceway right now, and we'd like to talk to you. And I kind of contemplated. He said, we're coming to the track in a couple months, and we just want to meet for a casual dinner. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but NASCAR does nothing casually, like nothing. Right, nothing. So they brought some of the executives to dinner, and it was a great dinner, and they were casual. The dinner was not, but they were really down to earth. They were so fun, and I really connected with them. And they said, we think you could be our person. However, you do need to go through the interview process. You do, which of course I should. They said, can we fly you down in a couple of weeks to do it? And a few weeks later, they called me a week before, and they said, sorry, you have to go through 15 interviews in one day. Okay, that sounds great. So I did the 15 interviews in one day. And they said, if you can do 15 interviews in one day, you probably can run a racetrack, you know. So, but the 15 interviews, I don't know if you all know who the France family are, but they are the family that started NASCAR, and they continue to run it this day, in addition to the board and the executives. And the France family, I met Jim France and Ben Kennedy, who is also a member of the France family, and Lisa France Kennedy. And I will tell you that they are the most wonderful, warm family, down to earth, and they were part of the interview process. And when I met them, you know, I will say Jim France came into the interview in jeans. Just a very special family, and I knew that that's what I wanted to be a part of. Because if you can get along with the people who are interviewing you, all the C-suites, and they feel down to earth, and you know that's the people who are running the company, that is amazing. So I say this because, you know, when the question that you asked, I didn't have to worry about any of that. I'm very fortunate, but you know, I'm sure that is, you know, a part of the process for a lot of women, and I'm very fortunate that I haven't had to have that be a challenge for me. So, yeah, very, yeah.
Hello, thank you all for speaking today. I've really been inspired by everything that you've contributed. So of course I know in order to get where you've gotten, you had to work long hours, you've had to put in the time, had to put in the effort. How do you unplug? Because I know that, of course, it's so easy to like do the hustle to get to where you want to go, but then when you can actually relax and breathe and enjoy it, how do you like unplug? What activities do you do to kind of unplug and really enjoy your success?
Y'all are gonna die with this one. So I don't. That would be so good. I do not drive the NASCAR car. They do let us ride around the track, though. That, you know, and yeah, it is kind of a de-stressor. And by the way, we actually have nights where anyone can come and drive around the track. We call them track laps for charity. You pay $20. It's five laps around the track. You drive your own car, and we have one coming up. Right, Lauren and Danielle? They are running them, and yeah, these two ladies run those. It's March, blah, 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 we're coming up, so, right? Okay, but, okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, you're in, yes. But it's always, you can take, yes, we think yes. We will, yes, we think. We'll let you know, okay. But the way I decompress on the way home, because I have to shut down. So last night I listened to Busta Rhymes on the way home. That's how I decompress.
Oh, that's
ready for that one, Laura. Lauren knows that I like Diddy.
That's a great.
That's my decompression.
That's a great question. I think it depends on the day. Like sometimes it's a glass of wine. Sometimes I'm binge watching, you know, just a horrific show on Netflix where I don't have to think about it, you know. Sometimes it's, my husband and I will just go have dinner, and I'll turn off my phone. It is difficult, though, when you have so much responsibility or so many people counting on you. And something that has helped me is it's less about decompression, but more making sure you have time for yourself. And I schedule time on my calendar. And I will not waver unless there's an emergency. But typically, and that has helped me not work, 80 hours a week. And that's probably been the best thing. And I got that from a mentor, and I started that probably 10 years ago, and that's helped me just get some of my time back and have self-love, self-health, right? Because it's so important.
I love that. That's good. I want to talk to you about that Busta Rhymes thing. That's hilarious. And also, my husband's a junkie, so we did the lap, and he was in one of the cars, and he was like a kid in a candy store. So we'll be at the next one. Oh. I want to see your dance moves. I was going to say that's one of the things I like to do in my spare time. You're talking about family balance. That's super hard. I have a story to tell about that. Before I started working for the credit union, I did work for sort of a cutthroat industry. And while the money was great, right, and the job was great, I never had time to enjoy it. And I missed a lot of my children's life. And so when I went to the credit union, and this was way back in the day, so that's not the case this time, but I went to the credit union, I'm like, hey, I need a computer and stuff for the weekend. And they're like, no, when we close, we shut down. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I don't know, mow the lawn. But, and I went home, and on the weekend, I sat down with the children in the living room, and they were like, you're not going to go upstairs to your office? That crushed me so bad. So I vowed to definitely, and like you said, I literally have to plan to have that balance. And one of the things that I do focus on is when I pull up to my driveway, that phone is off, okay? And if I have to do some business, then I'll sit in my car. But the moment I walk in that door, that phone is off. I've got, 2 adult foster sons that have diverse abilities, and they love 100% of my time. And I want to be able to give them 100% of my time. So I do plan it. I also am a Yellowstone junkie. Don't judge me. Oh, yes. So I do Netflix and binge. But we also have a nonprofit called Stepping Up, and our job is to create this club environment. And I'm on the entertainment committee. So we have monthly events where we all get together, adults with special needs, 18 and up, and we just dance and let our hair down. And I am on the dance floor. That's how I do my steps. And Busta Rhymes is one of my songs, so we're going to circle back. But, yeah, I have to plan, and I know that sounds bad, but I do have to schedule time because we could get into the weeds of work, and it's hard to shut our minds down. So I do sort of plan things out. It does suck you in if you let it. Yep.
I don't understand your question. No, I'm joking. I really don't understand your question. Like, unplug. What is that exactly? So I'll say this. I am a member, an unfortunate member and a fortunate member of the 2 phone club. I have 2 phones with me wherever I go because when you're in government, you have to have both. So law enforcement, you got 2 phones, personal, private. Lots of folks have 2 phones. Not fun. And it is really, truly, and I think this is how I would say it, this is a season, and maybe that's a cop-out, but truly, I do look at life at ebbs and flows. And when I am really working in the governor's office is an intense season. We knew what we signed up for, and I say we because Tobin had veto power. And she negotiated homework privileges in my office to be able, and that was the decision maker for me to take this job. And so it ebbs and flows. When we're in an intense season, my kids are supportive, and they know this is not going to last forever. This is a season. It's also the General Assembly session, so it's even more intense. And so I think having that family support and just being really open and honest about there's not going to be a whole lot of decompression time in this season with your own friends and family is important. I also say no a lot. I say no about 10 times for every 1 time I say yes. Not to Tobin. I tell you yes a lot. But I could be out at a reception. I just want to make sure she's okay. Toby, do you want to give her your seat, baby? just sit right there. You're good. So we could be out at a reception. I'm sure you could be out every night. Could you be out every single night? But that just protecting that, I think, is so important. You can't always do it in your 20s. Is not the time to say no. But you know, when you've got other responsibilities, and I also do yin yoga, which is basically like glorified stretching. But that's my like. That is my, and we have a dog, and there's some other things. I'm not as unhealthy as I sound, is what I'm trying to say.
That's better than one.
Thank you for the question. Yes, it is, although there's a fair amount of that, too. Yes. Oh, I'm taking your
need the
job,
mic? You good?
Delaney.
Okay, you're going to shout. That's good. Okay.
I'm just yell. I'm Italian, so it's in my DNA. But so along with that question, work-life balance, right? We're all mothers, and in this season, I have a 17-year-old and a 10-year-old, and it's always, Mommy, you're always on your phone, or you have to, like right now. Hey, oh, sorry. It's gonna get louder. Sorry. You know, I'm here and they're at home. Hey, you guys have to fend for dinner, right? And my husband's super supportive and I love him, but it's that balance of I'm giving up my children's childhood to build a legacy for them, but then I'm going to turn around and now I have a 17-year-old on my hands versus a 10-year-old and a 10-year-old who used to be 3. So how do you balance that? Because mom guilt is a
Bear. It's a bear. I'll answer that. I'll finish that. It's a bear.
you can't curse on TV.
No, you can't. Well, I have the mic, so I'm going to go first, if that's okay. My 19-year-old daughter was 2 years old when I ran the campaign for Attorney General. Just 2. I broke all the rules. In retrospect, it was not the right move. I had a lot of lost time to make up for, and I wish that I had done a lot of things differently. She's now 19. We were out for dinner the other night, and she was asking my sister-in-law, who's like general counsel at a Fortune 500 company, also not a wallflower, just like amazing. She's got good role models. And they're talking about summer internships and the whole bit. And she said, you know, I'm just so lucky because my whole childhood I got to watch my mom. So I've been telling myself, I was a terrible mom. I should have been there more. Da, da, da. She came with me to events. Don't make me cry. She came with me to events. She had a completely different perspective than the story I had been telling myself her whole childhood, which is I was not the mom I should have been. She tells everybody I was an amazing mom. So I'm going to go with that. And I don't know if that speaks to you or not, but I'm going to go with that. And that's what I have to believe because she's like, I had an amazing childhood. I wouldn't have changed any single thing. Now, again, I'm telling you with a caveat. I made a lot of mistakes and I had a lot of changes. I quit my job and didn't work for 6 months to spend time with her. And I mean, there were a lot of things that I had to do and I'm doing differently with Tobin. But I think that there are ways you can't have it all at the same time, but you can have it all seasonally at different times.
Wow, you like mastered that question. You know, it's like I'm getting emotional because I wish I can go back and really devote everything to my children's upbringing. They're 27 and 22, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't get this right. But you said something really important. You said, I need them to understand that what I'm doing and why I'm working so hard is because I'm building a foundation for your children, right? Your motives are good. Your purpose is good. And while it might feel a little like I don't get the mother award, like she said, they're watching you. They're watching your work ethic. And you're going to hear one day, I want to do exactly what my mom did because she took good care of me. And, I mean, that's rewarding in itself. And I do hear that from my children. I learned that from you. But back in the day, it was like, you're a terrible mom. You're never here. You don't call. And, you know, that hurts. No mommy wants to hear you're a bad mom. But we have to keep in mind that we're purpose-driven. And our purpose is our family. And family is core. Family is everything. Now, if your purpose was just to make money so you can just go run off someplace, that's different. But you said something very critical. You said something very important. You're doing it for your family, and they know it. They know it. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a journey. You know, I was horrible at work-life balance, and I regretted it. And then I just worked at getting that time back, giving more time to the family. And I was lucky in love the second time, so I have a really good partner. I mean, he's actually driving our 26-year-old right now to D.C. to go to the U.K. for a couple months. She's a dancer. And she wanted me to drive her. But I was, I'm here. I already made a commitment, and so we got together last night. So it's just you have to, again, it's being nimble and flexible enough to make those choices and decisions. But I'll tell you, and she's my oldest, my 26-year-old, and probably from the time she was 5 to 12, I was not around a lot. And I had terrible guilt about that. And she today says that I'm a wonderful mom and a great role model, and she hopes that she can be just like me. And she calls me a bad, you-know-what. And I love it, and she's, hashtag girl power and all those things. And I love that because my mother was the strong female in my life, and she was a single mom, so she couldn't be around. But I had other, she had help, and I have help. So it's really important that it doesn't always have to be you, and know not to beat yourself up, because none of us are perfect. And you just every day try to get better. And I'm a lot better at it now,
My only role model was my mother, who was a high school principal, and she was, high school principals, they live at the school, right? Like, they're at every football game, every wrestling match, everything. So she wasn't really around that much. And I would sometimes go with her, to the school and get to see her, as I would say, be bossy. And so that was my role model. I just thought that's how moms did it. You just worked all the time. And so I didn't really have any other example. When my youngest was 3 months old, that's when I became publisher of Style Weekly. And as such, you went to all the events and arts groups and everything. So I sort of worried a little bit that was going to make an impact. But just this week he said, I heard Dad said you have Monday off for MLK Day, and I was wondering if you wanted to hang out with me. We could go to Short Pump and grab lunch. And this is a 16-year-old boy. I'm like, do I? That sounds amazing. So I don't think that's wrong to show them great, strong work ethic. And maybe that's just the justification in my mind and how I'm feeling better about it, but I think it's okay. I look at Lauren, who I work with, and Danielle I just shared earlier. Lauren has a great work ethic. She's my assistant, but she's also wearing a million other hats at the racetrack. I mean, she's there most days before I get in there and leaves after I leave, which is definitely backwards. But she has this amazing work ethic. But the crazy thing is that her mother also works at the track for us, and her mother ran the State Fair of Virginia for 30 years. So there's a great role model that Lauren has, and look at what she created. So I think we're setting good examples, right? So. There's a question right there.
I'm going to veer off, though. Sorry, ladies. Okay, so we have 4 experts, but I want to ask one question to the other leader in the room, Delaney. Uh-oh. So I'm going to give you this microphone back. So I am going to guess, I don't know your age, you're probably one of the youngest anchors in town, possibly. You're on ABC. We all watch WRIC. You're a leader in the marketplace. What's it like to be a leader? You're setting the stage, and a lot of things come. So I'm sorry, ladies. Take a break. And we're going to hear from Delaney, so go up front.
Oh, boy.
Get you.
Also caught me off guard. That's a good question. I would say, I'm going to come around behind you so my back's not to the audience. So I actually started at Channel 8 in 2019 as a reporter. I'm actually born and raised here. I actually went to Deep Run down the road from here. So came back home. And I was very fortunate to report in my hometown, because in the industry, not everyone gets to do that. So that was obviously such a blessing. And now, a year ago, I was anchoring on the weekends for a little bit, and then the opportunity came to anchor weekdays, and I think I almost passed out when Larry and my boss came to me about the opportunity. It's crazy to think a year ago I was in a completely different position, but I have to credit really to the team that I work on. My co-anchor, if you guys watch, John, he is a wealth of knowledge. He's been in a lot of markets, so I get a lot of advice from him. And I think it is a lot of what you guys were saying, relationships. So the team that we work on, you have a different kind of bond when you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and see your coworkers without makeup on, hair in curlers. It is a different kind of relationship. But you get close in a way that you may not get with other people, and that trust is really there. So it's been a blessing, and I like to credit to the relationships that we build there. Yeah. Thank you for that question, because I was not prepared to answer a question. Do any of you have questions? Yeah, we're actually creeping up there. I'm not going to lie, but it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, you had a question.
So, two-part question, if I may. So my name is Kelly Powell. Thank you all for this. And it's been really lovely. So my first question is there a book you all would recommend? And it could be audio, because I'm big on books. And two, since you've been so generous with your time and advice for us, take this opportunity, if there's anything that each one of you would want to make an ask of us when we leave these doors today in support of each one of you, what would it be? And be unapologetically bold in whatever it is, personally, professionally.
No problem.
There you
I've
go.
got an answer for both. First, the book is relentless. I'll just leave it at that. It's very easy to find. Second, please come to the race. Please. And here's the why. Virginia is fortunate to have this race in this market and in Martinsville. We have it twice a year. It is the professional sport that the Commonwealth has. We get to show up and show off our region on a national stage in front of millions and millions of people only this time. That's an incredible honor, an incredible privilege that we get to have. And when we get to have that, more people come here. More people get to see our region, and they get to buy our food. They get to buy our restaurants, hotel rooms. They get to, spend money in our region, and that's great for our region. But if people don't come to our race, and they don't show up and buy our seats, or even just show up, and we don't fill that bowl, that stadium, then it may go away. And that's not something we want. It is really fun. It's really fun. It's so fun. It's so fun. Even if you don't think you would have a good time, you have a good time, I promise. There's events within events. So we want that to continue. But if people don't come, it will go away. And we want that to continue because it's great for our region. It's great for our Commonwealth. So please come. If you don't have a ticket, I have tickets for all of you in this room today. Lauren has them. I promise you will have a great, great time. I promise you, it will be a fun time. Invite your friends, invite your family. We will ensure that you have a great time. So that's the bold ask.
We made it a girls' day when I went to the... I love it. It is fun. I'm going. Lean In. That's the book. Love that book. If you haven't read it, it's great. And I would have two asks. The first is go find a mentee. Find somebody that you can help to make better. Because if you don't have one now, it'll make you better, I promise. The other ask is to put February 23rd on your calendar. Lori and I are doing a co-event together called Women Who Drive Richmond, and it's going to be at the Raceway. We're recognizing 10 women who are making a positive impact in our region. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great event. And I just love the tie-in because it's women who are driving Richmond, and it's at the Raceway. And we're going to do some fun things. So February 23rd, please come out and support, all the good things that are happening. Are amazing. Yeah, it was hard.
Wow, I'll be there for sure. The book I'm reading is Growth IQ. Great book. And some takeaways. Go to the Richmond Raceway. They also have concerts called the Virginia Credit Union Live. So if you do go to a concert and you're a member of the credit union, you get free parking. Just you show your debit cards to do that. Yeah, we got to lift each other up. We got to lift up our community, right? We got to support our community if we want our community to grow. So if you have an opportunity to show up anywhere where it's going to enrich the lives of our community, enrich our businesses, we need to show up. So that's my takeaway. And also, if you're not a member of Virginia Credit Union, you can go to www.vacu.org.
I am already a member, but thank you. The book that I love reading, I love books. The book that I would recommend actually touches on your earlier question, which your makeup looks amazing, by the way. Which is Grit by Angela Duckworth, and it just talks about how at the age of 12, there's all this confidence in young women, and then a lot of it just plummets around that age. But if you do a certain set of things, you keep that confidence up. One of them is playing sports, team sports specifically. A couple of other things in there, and it really speaks to your question. So great question, good answer. It's a great book. My ask, this is not going to be surprising, and it hits on what each of you has said too, is just to find a way to give back. There are so many kids that need whether you have your own children or not. I feel like our kids in the Commonwealth are a little bit like the Raceway. We need to invest in them. They've been through a really, really, really hard time with COVID. They have not recovered. A lot of them are using fairly unhealthy coping mechanisms, like looking at their phones too much. I don't know where they get that from. It is, I see data in my position all the time. It weighs on me. It weighs heavily on me. But I know that despite the collective trauma that we've all been through with COVID these last few years, there's something called post-traumatic growth syndrome, that you can grow. You can use something that is traumatic, and gets to the grit question as well, and be better off because of tragedy than you were before. And so, but the key to that growth is those relationships. And one healthy adult in a kid's life can absolutely change their story, change their trajectory, change all the taxpayer money that you spend on all the social programs, incarceration, addiction. All of those things can be fixed with one healthy adult in a kid's life. So that is my ask of you. Are we finished? Is that the last question, or do we have more?
I think we still have some time for a couple more questions. Yeah.
I know most of you, and I'm really grateful that I do. Lori, I haven't met you, but you've donated to my nonprofit, so thank you. Kelly has become a mentor to me. And Dan,
what's your nonprofit?
So Two in the Stigma.
I got
the
it.
First Lady, yeah. So I'm really fortunate that the governor and the First Lady have taken, because we're talking about fentanyl youth, we're working on education curriculum, in particular an emotion wheel right now, and we're branding that to start talking to kids because of coping mechanisms, trauma, things like that is the first reason you lean towards it. But this is not really the question. So I was an Army wife for many years. My husband, I was stayed home. He did 5 deployments, all 12 to 18 months. So I never worked.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for thanking me. I'm also an Army brat. So I grew up in it, married in it. This is my first time kind of civilian life. So I have not worked for many years, even though I have a PR and marketing background from VCU. I focused on my boys. I have 2 boys that are 14 and 11. I started Two in the Stigma just under 2 years ago, and I work like a dog. 7 days a week, all sorts of hours. And like you're talking about the mom guilt, and I have the worst. Do you guys feel, because you're like the boss ladies, do your children look at you differently when you're out of the home doing work versus your spouses or husbands or significant others? Because my husband will go away for 2 weeks. He's a competitive shooter, and they don't even know he's gone. And I'm out the door one night, and they're like, where were you? Do you guys get that, being the mother? Like, is that any different, being these women in charge? Is that
different for you guys?
I'm going to answer this quickly. First of all,
Yeah,
thank you so much for all you do. Do you have a website? Two, the number two, and I know what your website is. I just want to repeat it. Okay, to endthestigma.org. Amazing story. Thank you for all you do. You are amazing. I don't want to answer this personally. My husband is super supportive, and I couldn't even pass the microphone on without acknowledging all of the work. He makes breakfast every morning, dinner every night. He does the lion's share of the child's care. Our kids are older now, but still, huge thank you, Ryan. The fact that your kids miss you is a good thing. That means that you have a bond with them that is pivotal to their growth. It is literally shaping their brain toward relationships and away from their phones. It is shaping wiring their brain and their physiology, neurobiology toward relationships and away from addictions. So kudos to you. They might have a different answer but it's a good thing that they miss you. That is a good thing. That means you've loved them well. That means you love them well.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Being missed is a positive thing. I mean, love that. When they don't see you walking, they don't acknowledge you, then it's like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Yeah. But when they're 16, they're just making stuff up to tackle you, get on your emotional strings. But, hey, I love being missed, right? It's good to be missed. So that just means you're making a total difference in their life, and you matter. And they just remind you of that. So take a bow. Take a bow.
Yeah, I would just echo, you're amazing. Yes, you are. And you're doing great things in the community, so thank you. I have 5 kids blended. My 2 oldest are the girls, and, they loved me, then they hated me. Now they love me again, right? And I told the story of my 26-year-old. She wanted me to drive her to D.C., so that is a good thing. And you don't want that not to happen, right? So you're obviously doing something right. So I would say that's a good thing, and embrace it. And I know it can be, oh, that's not fair. They don't miss their dad. Then they miss me when I'm gone for an hour. But I think that's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Ditto. I agree.
That'll make me feel better. It's a little therapy question.
Hello. You guys have been amazing. Love hearing everything you guys have had to say. I actually have an amazing mother who's here as well, so I'd like to shout her out. She's been great. And I just have a quick question. I'm just curious if there's something you still strive to accomplish in life that you have not done yet, either in your real life or in work, whichever.
I mean, I'm just always learning. I'm in a new role. This is completely different, right? So I need to keep learning. Every day you got to learn something new. And I'm learning from, my team. They're teaching me way more than I'm teaching them right now. Learning from this awesome panel. So I think it's just about learning something new and staying humble and, in another few years, I'm sure I'll completely switch industries and everyone will be scratching their head at what I'm doing next. So that's what I'm doing next. So, yeah.
I would say the same thing. I don't know what my next thing's going to be, but I'm not done. Yeah. And so I constantly, I'm a learner. I'll know when I'm done, and then I'll go on to something else. But I still have a lot of work to do. And so I look for every day. I look for people that I can learn from and grow as a person and as a professional. And I would say the one thing I really want to learn to do is be a gamer with my 14-year-old stepson, because I stink. And he laughs at me all the time, and so maybe you can help me figure out how to. I would like that.
I'm just going to kind of echo what everyone said. It's like, I don't really have a stopping point. I want to be a sponge for the rest of my life. I want to soak up any new opportunity any new knowledge. So if I decide to do that thing, I know all I got to do is listen, soak it up, find a mentor to do it. But I don't want to cap myself on opportunities. I mean, there's so many. I can go through a long list of things, but I'm not done yet, like you said. That's like the perfect answer. I'm not done yet. I mean, as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to try it all. I want to try it all.
So good. I think we may have found a new feature for the RTD, which is the Style Weekly used to have the top 40 under 40. I think you need to start a top 40 over 40. Just saying. Okay. Also, thank you to the guys for showing up today. I don't know why I expected this audience to be all women. For some reason, I don't know why. It was probably my own implicit bias that I just assumed. I don't know where that came from, but thank you for coming. I would like to write a book. I wouldn't like to write a book. I feel like I should write a book, and I want to write a book.
You should write a book.
I feel like that's on my list of things I need to do, but like there's so many books, and who knows. So that's the first thing, and I want to run a business, and I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I feel like the business sphere is my next move, so I may be calling some of you.
Oh, that's a good idea. We probably have time for one more question, if anyone has any.
Kevin, what's your question? You have a question. Think really hard. What's something that you want to ask for really, well, 3 really smart, successful women? Or do you have advice for us? This is your moment. No pressure. No pressure. Thank you for being here today, Kevin. Yes. She just asked, what do you want to see changed in the world?
And that's okay. That is okay.
All set? All right, so again, thank you all for attending. And I have to use the microphone because last time I didn't use one and they can't hear it on the camera, so even though I'm loud. But thank you. And I think, Robbie, you know, you ask a good question. So it doesn't have to be the women leaders. It could be men. It could be human beings, right? And I will tell you, I was done a year ago. I was done. I was up in Pittsburgh, very happy. My wife wasn't because I was staying home. But, you know, I got a call, like Lori gets called, you get recruited. And I never really jumped around, never did. I stayed focused. But I got a call, and it was very humbling, from a board member and said, you know, we need some different direction. You know the board, you were on the board, you were a retailer, you're a business guy, for-profit, you understand. And we have a relevancy problem with the Better Business Bureau after 110 years. Really, people don't know what it's about. You got the passion that you can put it into it. So I kept saying no. I did the interview, and I knew it was right. Probably like when you did 15 interviews, I did a virtual interview. I knew it was right. I went upstairs, said, Mary Lou, this is it. But I don't think I want to take it. I don't want to move away because it's going to be separated, right? And I tell this story a lot when I do tryout events with senior citizens, and they love this story. I say, you know, a lot of people, they might listen to God when they pray and stuff, but I don't listen very often. And God probably says, what are you, an idiot? You don't listen very well, Barry. So one night, and Mary Lou doesn't know this, but I woke up, I stare at the ceiling fan going around and saying, and God said, right? You've seen a movie like that, and God said, how crazy are you? Do you realize this was set up because you're replacing Barry Moore? Barry Moore was the president and CEO, and you're Barry Moore. What are you, a rocket scientist? And so from then on, you know, and I put it out there to the seniors. They all laugh, and they get a kick out of it because in our life, when we get, I'm the oldest one in the room probably right now, and when you get to a certain age, you look back and say, did you raise your hand? You are. Thank you for being honest. Married an older lady, but she's great. She's younger than me. But it gets to a point when you look back, you say, what should you have done? You should listen closely to what that comes at you, and don't miss opportunities because they're right there in front of you, and you just don't know it. And somebody said early on, relationships, right? So Better Business Bureau, bbb.org. As consumers, I work for every one of you. My leading, I tell four of the 5 ladies here, lead with our brand. So Channel 8, I say it to the Richmond Times, the Credit Union, and the Raceway. Lead with the brand. Start with trust. That's who they are. Use those words. That's who we are. And this community is key. If this NASCAR can get these seats full this year, it's a big deal. Okay? It's not one person doing it, but it's a leader doing it, but motivating all of us. So as a BBB, I've got to help them get people butts in seats, as you would call it, right? So I thank you all for coming out. You all have my email. Every one of you got my email. If you like the format, this is an unusual, the way I did it, 3 to 4. I try to do it for free. Every other nonprofit raises money, right? I should be doing that, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted this to be open to the public. The food part was just to cover the food expense. And did you like the way it was? So send me an email if you have any topics that you'd like to hear. We want to do this on a monthly basis. So that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
She's awesome. Great. You got to give out the tickets? Did you?